All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. Do you understand?
Rightio legends, Cast Chronicles, and we're back with another video. And so today we're doing a video on Victor Peirce. It's probably the second most asked about name that I've got in this whole Underbellys Most Feared series. So before I get into it, if you haven't already subscribed, jump down there, shoot me a subscription. If you hit that bell icon, you'll never miss any of my videos again. All right, so who is Victor Peirce? So Victor Peirce is probably one of the biggest names in the Victorian criminal underworld, especially through the 70s, 80s and 90s. He's very famously part of the Kath Pettingill's boys. So, you know, they include big names like Victor Peirce, Trevor Pettingill, Dennis Allen, Peter Allen. There was a lot more, but they're the most well-known ones. And so Victor Peirce is probably most well known for the Walsh Street shootings where Stephen Tynan and Damien Eyre, so two police officers, were lured to an abandoned car in Walsh Street and were then their lives were taken in a pretty brutal way.
4:30 on an October morning, 1988. Gunshots echo down a dark suburban street.
A tragic and violent end to brief lives and brief careers in the police force.
Shots that haunt police to this day.
Absolutely fresh in my mind, always will be. It was a total tragedy to see young people cut down like that who had no connection with any of the history.
22-year-old Constable Stephen Tynan and 20-year-old probationary Constable Damien Eyre.
It's the first multiple killing of police in 110 years, and you can't have people in those positions go off to work and be murdered, and there's no justice.
So both brothers, Victor Peirce and Trevor Pettingill and Lee Farrell and Peter McAvoy, were the four that were famously charged with unaliving the police officers. So it was pretty brutal. They were both shot with a shotgun, and then one of them actually was killed with his own service revolver. And so it was pretty brutal. But what a lot of you guys might not know is that 13 hours before that took place, Graham Jensen was shot and killed by the armed robbery squad, because it was alleged that these four people and more were doing armed robberies in and around Melbourne. And so that is said to be why the retribution on the police happened, because they unalived or killed one of his crew, and then this was the payback. And it was like, if you take one of ours, we're going to take one of yours. If you take one of ours, we're going to take two of yours. And so that's exactly what happened. And those four were famously charged with this, and they had a few star witnesses. So Victor's own nephew Jason was giving evidence, but also Victor's wife famously was giving evidence, and they were both star witnesses. And so all four of them men were looking at beating these charges, and then neither of them two decided to give evidence anymore. So the police's case fell through, and all four of them were acquitted on the Walsh Street murders. And it changed a lot for the law in the future. Now, I know that they said that they were going to change the law, and when they reopened the law, that this was going to be the first case on the shelf. But yeah, I still don't think anything has happened about it.
They're not guilty. They're certainly not saying they're innocent. They just they had a doubt. It's reasonable doubt.
Inside the car, the scenes of jubilation continued.
Good as gold. Good as gold.
What about you, Kath? You got your boy home?
Oh, my oath, I've got him home. Family's nearly all complete now.
He feels sorry for the families of the two policemen killed.
They've been deceived all this time that we are the ones what done it, when in fact we aren't.
Pretty shocked. Pretty shocked.
Did you expect that?
Not really, no, not at all.
So obviously they were all acquitted of that. And so, which means that no further charges in the future could be laid. And so they did say that they were going to amend that law, and specifically because of this case. But yeah, nothing to this day has happened. But I will say that it is very, very widely known, and it's a well-known fact that people have gone on TV and spoken about it, that Graham Jensen, that at the time of his death, it was very, very, very suspicious. And so it is very widely believed that he was unarmed at the time, and police were actually following him around at the time he was on surveillance. And so they were following him around for something like 4 or 5 hours before this shooting took place. So they know damn well that he wasn't unarmed. But people that worked for the armed robbery squad at the time, some of the first on the scene, like, go on report and talk about how never, ever, ever, and being some of the first people on the scene, never, ever, ever seeing a gun in that car at the start. And then other officers have gone on report in saying that they seen one of the CIU or CIB, it was back then, the detectives, go to the boot of his car, grab a firearm out and put it back in that car. So it's also widely known that that firearm was not loaded. The magazine was put in upside down and, had no bullets in it at all.
There were violent bank robberies throughout Melbourne committed by the Flemington crew headed by Victor Peirce. The police were determined to apprehend all of the people involved in these robberies. One such person of interest was Graham Jensen, who the police had under surveillance at his home in Narre Warren.
So it's also important to add here that Graham Jensen was under surveillance for an armed robbery that took place in Brunswick, where a security guard lost their life, where he was later found after his death to have taken absolutely no part in this whatsoever. So them taking his life was for absolutely no reason at all. And so, police went on record and said that he was absolutely unarmed at the time.
I walked with one of the other operatives over to the car. I went past the driver's door, stopped. I had a look inside. I could see that Jensen was slumped in the seat and was deceased.
Did you see a weapon when you looked inside the car?
When I looked in the car at that time, there was no weapon.
You're absolutely sure of that?
100%.
Now, not that two wrongs make a right, but you can clearly see that both sides of the law were playing like dirty, dirty games. And for that to happen to Graham Jensen like that is absolutely putrid on their behalf. They're the people that are supposed to uphold the law and whatnot, and clearly they are not. So, a little bit more on Victor Peirce. So who is Victor Peirce? Like I said, he is a son of many of Kath Pettingill, which is, they call the matriarch of this crime family. So Victor Peirce, Trevor Pettingill, Dennis Allen, and Panadol Peter Allen. So Victor was, like they said in the video, alleged to be the leader of the Flemington crew, which was believed to be responsible for some of the biggest armed hold-ups, like armed robberies at the time. And, for this, they were constantly in and out of prison, and as such had a pretty scary name in prison. And so obviously they were a little bit before my time, although Peter Allen has been in prison when I've been in prison. The others haven't. They were a little bit before my time. But when I spoke to people about these people like Victor Peirce, Dennis Allen, they speak about them like they were the fucking boogeymen. So like they say, make no mistake about it. These were very, very, very feared people inside the prison walls and excuse me, and outside the prison walls also. And, were very, very well known for getting the job done inside and as well as outside. And I guess, along the same lines as a lot of these criminals that get to a certain stature. You know, unfortunately, a lot of them meet their demise, and so on one night, I believe it was 2002. So Victor Peirce met his demise when he was sitting in his car alone. And yeah, so
The 42-year-old was sitting in his parked car in the busy Bay Street shopping centre. Another vehicle pulled up alongside. A man got out and fired several shots.
A few years after the acquittals, Victor Peirce is shot dead by a rival criminal, Andrew Benji Veneman.
So as we all know, Benji Veneman obviously was never ever charged with that because he was killed himself, but somebody else actually spent well over 10 years in prison for that crime also, but then later to be acquitted in 2018, I believe it was, because of all that Nicola Gobbo stuff that's seen a lot of prisoners have their charges dropped and released from prison. And so this was exactly one of those. And but like it's without a doubt that Kath Pettingill, the so-called matriarch, you know, gave birth to some of the evilest, craziest men to hit the streets of Melbourne, and there's no two ways about it. And like I said, when I spoke to people in prison that had done prison time with Victor Peirce and Dennis Allen and them, they like I said, they spoke about these people like they were the friggin' boogeymen. And so, you know, without a doubt, that whole family ran absolute like rings around Melbourne for two separate, you know, decades. And so what I didn't mention in my last video as well about Dennis Allen is that so Roger Rogerson, the famous veiled cop from Sydney, actually got convicted of his first ever crime and was convicted of supplying Dennis Allen with heroin in the 1980s, but was later acquitted by appeal. And so it's believed that he had involvement with Kath, and I'm not sure if you know, so Kath Pettingill, the matriarch, was famously known to own one of the brothels that was in Melbourne. And so I guess, you know, all her boys were brought up around that, so they were never ever going to have a good start in life. But without a doubt, you know, Victor Peirce definitely earns a place in Underbellys Most Feared. And yeah, once again, if you guys have got any videos that you'd like me to do in the Underbellys Most Feared section of, just please remember that my only rule is that they must be deceased. I won't be doing any videos on anyone who is still alive. They have their own stories to tell, and it's not my place to tell their stories. But anyway, also guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please jump down there, shoot me a subscription. That'd be absolutely appreciated. I am the Chaos Chronicles. What do? We talk about everything Australian, crime, prison, and they're alike. And yeah, don't do drugs in jail and you won't end up in prison.
There's a massive police hunt for the killers who senselessly slaughtered two young policemen on a routine job in South Yarra at dawn today. They died from shotgun blasts to the head and back as they checked an abandoned car. Michael Venus begins our coverage of an ambush that has shocked Victoria.
311, if you can slip down to Walsh Street in South Yarra. Just there's a white Holden sedan, not knowing what the rego is. Got the lights on and the smashed windows in the middle of the road.
Yeah, Prince 11 received that, 26483.
With that seemingly routine transmission, a tragic sequence of events began to unfold. 22-year-old Constable Stephen John Tynan and his younger partner, probationary Constable Damon Jeffrey Eyre, rolled out of Peran Police Station in their divisional van. They headed to exclusive Walsh Street, South Yarra, near the Botanical Gardens, on the fringe of the city. The first indication that they'd driven into a perilous position came from local residents.
South Melbourne 150, I sent Peran 311 down to Walsh Street. Since then I've had about 3 or 4 cars come down saying that they've heard shots fired in that street, and I can't get Peran 311 at this stage.
As other units converged on the confusion, this chilling...
Also, I thought I might add on the end of this that in 2005, Wendy Peirce done an interview with Australian media going back to her first statement saying how her husband and the others planned the robbery, but then was asked again if she would stand up in court and give evidence, and she refused to give evidence again. But anyway, guys, don't do drugs and crime and you won't end up in prison.
The Chaos Chronicles, where the darkness thrives.